Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. If you listened last week, then you know you're in for a treat because Megan McNealy is back. And we are doing part 2 of our series on Reinvent the Wheel. That is the name of her book. Reinvent the Wheel, How Top Leaders Leverage Well-Being for Success. And one can be both wealthy and healthy, or healthy and wealthy. And welcome back, Megan.
Hello there. I'm so thrilled to be back. I just love you and I love your audience. And this is just so much fun.
And I feel very blessed to talk with you as well as get to see you, which of course our radio audience does not, but we're Zooming together. And I remember, as a plainclothes hippie these days, but in my hippie years, the question was, does one want to do well or do good? And I always elected to do good, to be a do-gooder, because I couldn't see myself really looking at wealth pursuit as a top priority in my life. And but I also recognized over time that as a woman, that women are devalued and undervalued for their work. And there was a time when I was a director of a coalition against domestic violence, and I was asked by lawyers to speak on behalf of a battered woman who was being held liable for her dead husband's excessive gambling debts. And of course, I testified that she should not be held responsible because if she ever approached him with even a question about finances, he would beat her. And she was exonerated. And these lawyers expected, because I was in the do-good field, that my time was less valuable. Oh, you're a woman who really cares about people. And they wanted to somehow not pay me what we had already agreed on, which was for traveling time and all of that. And I said, absolutely not. I would not fall into that kind of category. And this is what so many women get stuck with, the idea of momism. You care, and therefore that's part of your paycheck. And yes, I care, and I also deserve affluence. I deserve to be paid for my expertise, which has taken me many decades to acquire, and I expect to be paid for it. So I just want to throw
I love that. Well, I love that, especially as a wealth management advisor, one of the top firms in the world. I've been managing money for people for more than 24 years. Well, this is my 24th year. And that's music to my ears. When there is a woman who believes that her worth is true and that compensation is appropriate. And the last thing, which, I'm also extremely passionate about, is I believe well-being can equal wealth being. When you have your priorities aligned and you are showing up with your full potential, which I believe is leveraged by well-being behind the scenes, and you are providing what you just described in that trial, which was absolute excellence, I think that compensation follows that. I mean, there's different industries and things like that, but I think as women and just as humans, my work is for anyone. I do believe that our truest potential is following our path and being everything that we can be at every level. Intellectually, emotionally, well-being wise, I'm interested in helping people find their true power. I like the word power.
Yes, and it's been adulterated, no pun intended. But the female version of power is quite different than the male typical male version of power. For it's not power over, it's power with. Being empowering others empowers you, and it's a healthy reciprocity. And I just want to make sure I got your phrasing because it's so well put. Well-meaning equals wealth being.
Well-being. So, I love the idea of being well. So
well-being.
Well-being
yes.
equals
Right.
wealth being.
Wealth
and in
being.
fact, in my book, one of my frameworks is a well-being wheel. And then I also have in the book a framework. It's actually a visual called a wealth being wheel, which shows all of the outcomes from the spokes of taking care of yourself. Self-care, actually, I think is a superpower, which is often overlooked. And what you were just describing so beautifully is a form of self-care. It's owning your truth. Like one of the spokes is align values with actions and also speak your truth. You are coming to that woman's aid. You are serving. And I think that's one of the highest expressions of power you can have is to serve. On my website, I have my values are love, truth, and impact. And I just say it all the time, even though people don't think of love, when they think of wealth management or like having I have a very significant wealth management business. I just actually received an email from Barron's that I'm being considered in the top 100 women advisors in the United States.
Congratulations, Megan McNealy.
I'm so excited. I hope I get it. So those kind of accolades are very valuable. However, what I also think is valuable is owning your excellence. And you knew when you went to that trial to help that person that you were not only serving, but you were offering your excellence, almost like on a platter in service to the higher good. And being able to have that kind of impact or have that kind of effect has such an astonishing reciprocity to you as a person, because it has got to infuse your well-being with that confidence that, knowing in your heart that you lived to your full potential that day. I am obsessed with that thought that each of your listeners could be thinking about, what is my true expression? That might have been Duffy's that day, but what is my true expression of my highest potential, my excellence, what I have to offer? And I do think that sometimes as women, we think of it that way,
Yes, absolutely. And when you said self-care is a superpower, I love it. I have done Megan, workshops, seminars, keynotes on self-care for women, trying to convince women that self-care is not selfish, and reconstituting and looking at the etymology of the word selfish. I mean, we don't have a word in our language that really expresses one word. We can say self-care, but even self-full. You're full of yourself.
That's terrible.
Yes,
that makes me cringe when you say that.
Yeah, in the best sense of the word, I'm full of myself. Yeah, but I love how you put that. Self-care is a superpower.
Well, it is
a lot.
And it can be leveraged.
Yes.
That's what's really interesting. And I didn't realize when I began my journey is not only is it useful, it can be leveraged. And not only that, I found 9 women and 9 men CEOs who are doing just that. So if you don't believe my own story about how I leveraged self-care, I mean, like what I think we've been thinking in the past, especially women, is that self-care is like a baseline. Like you just got to take care of yourself. You're going to fall to pieces. Like you got to, take a shower, brush your teeth, and, but I'm saying even more than that, really step it up. And I think that what in the past, what I used to think is that it was just a baseline, like I'm going to just do the bare minimum so that I can give to others. But what I learned is if I go beyond the bare minimum, I'm actually better in every category, whether it's being, I realize, I'll give you a fast example. I have a special needs daughter and I'm a single mom. And I realized that I was a little curt with Madeline if I didn't get enough sleep. Like if I was tired, I would just be a little more triggered. And you know, I never speak meanly to her, but it would be like my temper's a little shorter.
Yeah.
You know, a little more frustrated, I guess.
Right.
And she requires a lot of, or back in the day, required quite a bit of attention and care. So I just started to go to bed at 9, and I thought, oh, yeah, first, just like you said, I thought to myself, this is pretty selfish. I'm literally wrapping it up at 9 o'clock and in bed like a child. But then I realized it's a superpower. The next day I woke up, Madeline, good morning. I was like a different person.
Oh, yes.
And not only that, I realized that I was better at work that day. I was like just so good. I was so much better in that meeting. I was awake. I wasn't jacked up on coffee as much as I normally would have been. So it's not just self-care isn't just a baseline. It's actually can be leveraged for more power in other places. And that was an exponentially interesting finding I found in my work.
Yes, beautiful. And I certainly concur about sleep. It is amazing, the difference. It is absolutely amazing. Take care of your sleep needs. And I don't want to depend upon something to help me sleep. If I'd use anything, it would be natural melatonin or something. But I have found that during the lockdown, I slept better because I wasn't as keyed up with being in public all the time. I'm an extrovert. So when you look at how we use energy and what is our source of energy, for extroverts, it's contact with others. And for introverts, it's downtime and quiet time and reflection time. So an extrovert wakes up in the morning with an empty bucket of energy and it gets filled through social interaction. An introvert wakes up in the morning with a full bucket of energy, and with each social interaction, there's some draining of that. So I would, at the end of the day, be very overstimulated, and an introvert might be very drained. But so I found that it was helpful to me as an extrovert to not be in constant contact with people.
That is fascinating.
Yes, yes.
Wow. That is really interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
So when you in your customization, as you mentioned, and as you asked me offline, what do I do? You know, how do I personalize the well-being wheel? So basically, it is a matter of trying to balance out, right, my social interactions with quiet time, with downtime, and the relaxation. And also, one of yours spokes is gratitude. And I have gone from a bitter person. I was actually bitter in my earlier adulthood.
Are you serious?
I'm serious, yes.
Really?
I was raised in an alcoholic, violent family, and I was behind the 8 ball for many, many years in my life, trying to play catch up, having a teenage marriage at 18 to get out of my house, and then put me back, graduating college 4 years after my age cohorts, and spending my life basically playing catch up and doing the overworking and all of that, waiting on tables full time, putting myself through college full time. I did feel a sense of bitterness that I had somehow missed the boat. And I had turned around completely from, I feel so grateful. I feel very, very lucky in life. And I know that I have made a lot of very important decisions to be in the position I'm in, joining 12-step groups, being in recovery myself, and paying attention to what you're talking about, the self-care. And the constant balancing act between work and play, and work, activation and relaxation, activation and relaxation. So I would just say,
I love this.
Gratitude. Okay. Gratitude is very important as well.
So what I'm thinking as you speak, what's really interesting, and I love that you're sharing this because, getting a high level person to talk about their behind the scenes motivation for self-care is difficult. And I really appreciate you sharing that. Most senior executives or high level people like yourself don't often share a behind the scenes baseline motivation for something because many times they just want to appear phenomenal because they're in front of the hundreds of people they manage. They're in a position of power, and that is an interesting vulnerability. I believe it can, like you have done, is turn it into a superpower. What it sounds like is very, very important to your journey is the self-awareness, because I believe the self-awareness is slightly beneath, if you imagine a house, a foundation, and I'm not a psychotherapist, but what I have learned from interviewing executives is if you have that crystal clear self-awareness of who am I, what was my story, what were kind of the motivations, just like you shared, like, wow, I, grew up in a violent household. It motivated me to fend for myself. It motivated me to recreate a story, to change from bitterness to optimism. Just the awareness of it allowed you to create self-care customizations that allowed you to do a 180-degree turn. And in that way, you and I are similar. And I hope that your listeners can see that, is that, fill in the blank with what the challenge is. And you can see how if the challenge is monumental, you can choose a well-being strategy or a not well-being strategy. And I used to drink too much wine at night too. So that was not a well-being strategy. That was a coping mechanism that was not healthy. Or too much coffee, or fill in the blank. But what I love about your story is you have that baseline awareness, the 18-year-old marriage, the striving to be the best you can. Also, another awareness is that you're an extrovert. That's an important awareness for well-being. Okay, this is how I get filled up. This is how I get depleted. And I love how you shared how that relaxing for you is different from an introvert. Like there's going to need to be a different customization for that. So what's so exciting about this journey for your listeners is that everybody they can own their story. They can really say, I'm not limited, by what has happened to me in the past. I have a whole chapter on deal with your baggage. I can actually look at that baseline of who I am, where I've come from. And instead of using it as a crutch, think of different strategies that would just be perfect for me to fulfill my true potential in a good way. And I love that you mentioned recovery and all the different strategies you've used to help you be who you are. Like in front of me, look at you. You're gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. As are you.
Well, it's just so inspiring, and it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's not to say that listeners have to do all 18 of these spokes that are on this wheel. It's just a smorgasbord. I always tell people it's like a dessert cart. I'm rolling it in front of you. These are 18 things that work for me, but keep in mind I was broken down like a car on the side of the road. I had to literally get out and push my own car. But for most people, it's one or two things. That relax spoke for me is one of the hardest things. I cannot relax very easily. I am looking out my window here in California, and I put some chairs outside, and they're right in front of a bird feeder. And I got that idea from Oprah, who said she likes looking at her birds outside. And I'm one of those people, I don't like just doing nothing. Like, I'm sure you mentioned a client in the last episode who doesn't like to do nothing. I'm right along with them. And I just thought I will watch the birds. That's like, it's doing something with it's kind of like a hack.
Right.
I sit there and relax, and I watch the birds, and that's my relaxation. But that may not appeal to someone else. What I have heard a lot of executives say, and that I interviewed, is I relax by running. I'm like, okay, that's not what I mean by relax. That would be in that enlivening exercise spoke. That enlivens people. I get what they mean. It's meditative to be on the road and listening to I run too, so I listen to your feet. hit the pavement. But the truth is that that's exercise.
Yes, and there is a distinction in the field of passive versus active relaxation, right. And we actually need both. And I really love how you put that, Megan. I will watch the birds, because we have such a built-in bias about productivity, what productivity looks like, and what we should, healthy, wealthy, and wise. And you have that. The healthy, wealthy, but the devil that from our Judeo-Christian tradition, the devil's idle hands are the devil's work. And it's so damaging to people. It is so damaging. And then people don't know what to do, what passive relaxation looks like. They think it's watching some ridiculous grade B action movie.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
And get caught in some semblance of some little bit of adrenaline in their body that makes them feel more alive. And so it's either full speed ahead compulsive behavior in the name of productivity, or it's I quit. I think you had mentioned in your book, one of the quotes I think was around, we don't want to have a life that we have to escape from, right? I think that was in one of your quotes.
I was curious because it is such a difficult distinction, and I love examples. Do you have any practices that you have that are passive relaxation? Is that what you said the word was?
Yes.
Do you, what would you say? I mean,
for me, it's watching birds is ancillary. It's really just sitting in my backyard. My husband made a beautiful garden for us. He's the gardener in the family, and with my tea and just sitting and breathing and looking at the sights, of my backyard. That's my site, and it gives me such a feeling of well-being, of happiness, of grace, of gratitude. Just sitting and being. And I remember a poster in the Countercultural Times. Sometimes I sit and thinks, and sometimes I just sits. Sometimes I just sits. And of course, in meditation, it's called sitting. Are you sitting? How long are you sitting? And what is your position as you sit? And that sort of thing. So yes, that would be my example. And of course, reading something of quality. There's so many wonderful books. I wish people wouldn't believe they had to read junk to be entertained. And we can read high quality nonfiction, historical narratives, like Eric Larson, The Devil in the White City, that there are some historians that write nonfiction, that like a novel, and you can learn at the same time you're being entertained.
I love it. I sense a book list coming for your listeners.
Oh, yes.
Of all your favorites. I love it. It's funny because when I was on my health and well-being journey, I actually make a distinction between those two. Like you sitting in the backyard to me is in my relaxed spoke because you're relaxing. And then I, for myself, was putting the reading into the spirit lifting hobbies category because I love to read also. And I consider it a hobby. And, and I just have a really hard time isolating that relaxation
Yes.
item. I get massages, and I wrote about it in the book.
Oh, beautiful.
So I'm just getting massaged. And the reason I put it in the relaxed spoke is because I'm not doing anything. I'm just laying there. I'm not reading. It's just, to me, that thing we don't give ourselves is time with our thoughts. And meditation is different, not to make it too difficult for listeners, but if you listen or if you read about, Rich Fernandez, who I interviewed for the meditation. And I've studied Buddhist meditation for a long time. When I'm meditating, I'm trying to just let thoughts go. I'm trying to just listen to my breathing. But when
Right.
I'm looking at my birds, there's like thoughts going through my head and I'm just enjoying myself. It's just kind of this open space. I think of good ideas when I'm watching my birds. Do you let yourself think when you're out there with your tea, or are you trying to empty your mind?
Oh, I'm not trying to empty my mind. And I
You're
remember,
just thinking, you're sitting there enjoying yourself.
Exactly. As an early entrepreneur starting my practice of psychotherapy and keynote speaking and giving seminars and all of that, I was one of those people that never stopped. And I was
can relate.
frenetic in my early entrepreneurship. And then my husband and I went on a vacation, and I was so struck by how much more creative I was on the vacation, because I wasn't caught up with all these things I had to do all the time. I started writing, and I just wrote down all of these breakthrough theories and frameworks and ideas for keynotes. And just, it put me so far ahead, Megan, in not only my career, but my life. It rejuiced me. I was totally juiced by the vacation. And then it got to the point where I actually had to go out of the country in a different time zone to relax, because I was constantly with my office. What are they doing? Are they doing what I asked them to do? And all of this. And then one more thing, we have to close, believe it or not. But as a keynote speaker, anything I read I'd start taking notes for a keynote. Oh, this is a great phrasing, or this is a wonderful idea. I had to move into Anne Rice's, her vampire series. I had to move into something so out of my world to help me relax.
Right.
That's how enmeshed I was in communicating to the world how to be happier, essentially.
I love the story about your vacation, because it's very much like a listener in a very fast car driving, let's say from San Francisco to LA. They have their foot on the gas, and they are driving you have to really focus when you are that passionate about work, and you don't take your foot off the gas, and you are really focused and driving yourself, and you cannot see the view. And what it sounds like is when you went on that vacation, you were able to step off the gas for a second. All of a sudden you saw all the colors, and no wonder your creativity flooded back. No wonder. And, when we tell stories like this, everybody listening is like, no wonder she was more creative than ever. No wonder all of her great ideas came flooding in, because you took a moment to listen and look at the view. And I love that story. That is so empowering.
Wonderful.
Fabulous.
Wonderful. Megan McNealy, it has been an extraordinary pleasure. And I tell you that, and Sean Novat, our radio station manager, WHPC, knows me and how many, I've done literally thousands and thousands of interviews. And it's been a distinct pleasure. So I thank you. I thank you. And I'm very touched by you wanting to know about my ways of being on your well-being wheel. Very touched.
Well, it was fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing. I look up to you, and I look up to so many leaders, and I think these stories need to be shared.
You're right. And the way we really help motivate people is through sincere, authentic, personal stories. That's I am one with you. I am one of you. So, Megan, will you come back another 16 times, please?
Oh, yeah. No problem. I'm moving in. We can talk for hours. I'm coming for the summer.
Please do. Please do.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
I do invite you back to Just Relationships again. You are a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Read the book, Reinvent the Wheel, How Top Leaders Leverage Well-Being for Success by Megan McNealy. MeganMcNealy.com, MC capital Nealy. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.